Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Some Spoiled, the Song of Ice and Fire to the co-host Switcheroo. The rereading. Return to Westeros. HBO spoiler edition, uncut, uncensored, and too hot for TV. We are bringing you one of the greatest hits from 1998. I'm not going to say the call-in with your request now. In this episode, we are covering chapters 44 and 45, Jaime and Catelyn. In these chapters, Jaime has a dream about Brienne that sparks him to turn his horse around and go and rescue her. Catelyn is once again cataloging the names of her dead family. Repeatedly. Welcome to Unspoiled.
Monsters are dangerous, and just now kings are dying like flies.
I am the king!
Fuck the king.
Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I am Rashawn. She is like Arya with that list, though, right? Basically, like Arya's got a kill list, and fucking Catelyn's got a they're all dead list. And
it is a lot. I didn't remember, but like, guys, going through this chapter and check how many times she does this. At least like starts to do it versus it's a many a time.
And a mother's grief and all that, so I guess we'll allow it. But still, she is on some TV show that Steve is watching right now called Gangs of London. I haven't seen any of it, but I happened to be in a living room the other night while he was watching the finale, and she showed up on screen, and I was like, "Oh, Catelyn." And he had no idea what I was talking about. But
I didn't remember that he hadn't watched that show with you. He never watched Game of Thrones with you?
Oh, absolutely not.
Oh, shit. I didn't know that.
The only thing he has ever asked me about this show is, why is there always naked people fucking?
Mm-hmm.
And the only time he's ever given in to like social peer pressure, because he is just contrary by nature, is when the Red Wedding happened. He actually took a minute and was like, all right, I'll fucking bite. What is this Red Wedding people will not shut the fuck up about?
Oh, interesting.
Because it was just everywhere.
Did you sit back and go, well, look who comes crawling to me for their pop culture information.
I did. I 100% absolutely did exactly that.
Oh, I love this.
And then I told him about it, the best that I could. And as soon as I was done, he went right back to being completely disinterested.
Of course he did.
But the thing about the show, this Gangs of London, I don't know exactly what's going on. But the little brief tidbit I saw, I was like, well, I'll be damned. They got this bitch playing a terrible mother again. Because she was a mom on, did you watch Misfits?
Yes, I did.
So that's right. Yeah, she was Nathan's mom, right?
Yep.
And then there was a show on ABC a little bit after Game of Thrones. When she left Game of Thrones, she was on this show that was, I think it was called The Returned or something like that. But the premise was like these people that were dead, like came back. Oh, that's
right. I covered that first season.
And she played,
Nina.
Yeah, and she played this mom that was dead that comes back, and she's the worst.
That show was such a drag. Oh my god, I was low key relieved when it wasn't picked up again because I was just like, I don't know what they're doing, but they need to fucking pick a lane and start to hit the gas here.
There was 2 return shows that were airing right around the same time. So one had Omar, I think it was Omar Epps in it.
Was that wasn't there one of them French?
Yeah, so that was the other show. There was 2 Dead People Come Back show. The one that had Catelyn Stark had the dad from that 70s show.
Oh
and then there's the one you're talking about with that had that French thing that was going on. I can't remember anything except it was like a French person. But yeah, and they both ran like right around the same time.
I can't remember because I don't think I covered the French one. I think I covered the one you're talking about.
Yeah.
But either way.
But yes. So she's just still out there getting checks, being like everybody's worst mom, and I kind of love that for her.
Yeah, you know what? If they're gonna write them, I'll do them. Give me my money. All right, but we're getting ahead because we're not at Catelyn. We got to start with Jaime.
Oh, Jaime.
So Jaime is getting set up to take off here. He has recovered mostly from his fever, but not entirely, not in great shape. He is being sent to his father with Qyburn as his protector and gesture from Roose Bolton,
and his nursemaid as well.
Yep.
Yeah, this scene of him leaving, he's like almost back on his bullshit. Like
Yep.
kind of back to being like who he is as a man and just being like snotty and like antagonizing his former captors.
Yeah, I really enjoy the idea, as you say, almost back on his bullshit. Like he's going to do it, but it takes more energy and he doesn't get quite the enjoyment out of it because it's just draining in a way that it's not usually. And there's an interesting thing here where he's talking about the guy Steelshanks and how he's like a soldier of a type Jaime has seen before.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, he'll kill when he's told to kill and he'll rape when his blood is up. But then he will just put all of that aside and just live a normal life and he'll be fine. Yeah. Because he doesn't have whatever fucking sick psychological problem the bloody mummers have that makes them do what they do.
He calls it a deep malignant cruelty.
Yep.
And there's this distinction between like soldiers who kill because that's what they're commanded to do, and people who kill because they have a lust for killing.
Mm-hmm.
But the insert of and he'll rape when like their blood gets up really takes away from his argument about like how these men are not necessarily monsters.
I mean, it does for us now, but apparently that was just like a fucking expectation. If a dude was fighting, that he would also be ready to, like, it is wild how that's just taken as par for the course.
Part of war, yeah.
It's just
you can't expect a good war unless there's going to be some rape involved. Almost like it's the reward for warring well.
Like if you don't let them rape, what are they doing here?
Yep.
That's the dessert. Thank you. And he has this this moment where I love this so much. You will give my warm regards to your father, so long as you give mine to Robb Stark. That I shall. Yes, he shall.
These two chapters, we're marching a slow death march towards the wedding.
Yep.
And I, for one, do not care for it.
It's excruciating.
I just like the next chapter with Catelyn. I was kept being afraid because so much time passes in Catelyn's chapter. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's, like it starts out with them talking about where they're going to go next on their way to the twins, and then by the end of her chapter, it's like 2 weeks or more have passed. I kept being afraid that I was going to turn the page and they were going to be there because I'm not ready yet. I'm just not ready. I know it's coming.
I feel you. I mean, especially coming back into this after a break and just you're getting dropped into the pre-red wedding shit. Like this is a lot to come back to.
Yeah. And then every time, I know I'm getting ahead of myself again with Catelyn's chapter, but every time they start counting on Bolton as Robb is making his plans, and Bolton's going to do this or have the armies there, we'll meet up. I'm just like, oh, dude, it is not to be.
It is not to be. That is fucking it. So, yeah, they get all set up and he isn't wearing his Lannister anything just for the safety.
I love he is he has to carry something, right? Which is something which honestly, you guys, this is not something I really thought about much. I think we spend so much time in these books even though I never remember the information later, talking, about families and crests and sigils and, who's loyal to whom and all that jazz, right? That the idea that, like, you might need to wear armor and have a shield, but, like, what if you don't want to wear your own shit? Like, who do you wear? Mm-hmm. And so this was really, really interesting. Right? So he goes and he finds this shield of a long dead house. And I'm like, well, why are there still shields out here then?
For this event.
Is that what's happening?
Yep. They're just like, well, who knows when we're going to need to pretend to be somebody else. So we'll just go ahead and keep this over here to the side.
That's got to be it, because he says very plainly that they fucking died out ages ago.
Mm-hmm.
So
this is like that nasty t-shirt you keep around in case you have to do paint.
Yeah, when you dye your hair.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, this is going to wear when I don't care if it gets completely fucked up.
So yeah, I really like the idea that because, the thing is, if you're going to make armory and shit with a house that doesn't exist anymore, you could just make a shield that doesn't have anything on it.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess walking around with like a naked one is somehow even worse.
Yeah, so people, you're just ready. There's nobody to back you. So somebody could fuck with you.
So people decide that it's better to just wear some shit of a house that doesn't exist anymore than just walking around with like some ghetto, like off-brand,
Yep. This is why people join gangs. You need somebody to have your back. Otherwise, who fucking cares if something happens to you?
So I love that he's just like, he's going to be out here, and he says he's not going to be anyone's cousin. He's not going to be anyone's enemy. He's not going to be anyone's sword. He's just not going to be anyone.
Yep.
Which is also just really funny when I think about Jaime Lannister, because, him trying to recede into the background does not feel like on brand for him.
Yeah, this is not a man who deals well with being nobody. He isn't used to it, and he doesn't like it. It does not fit well.
Right? I feel like he'd be really offended if somebody suggested he pretend to be no one. And so they are, his whole group is getting ready to go back to King's Landing, and there's a conversation about like which way to go, and the King's Road is going to be faster. But this Steel Shanks guy, who even though we don't talk about it anymore, I thought of Crookshanks, right? Anytime I see Shanks like that,
oh yeah, that makes sense.
So I was just like, please don't call him Crookshanks on the podcast for sure. Please don't. But he's decided that it is more important to be safe than to be fast, and they are going to take these back roads to King's Landing instead.
I respect it.
And and it turns into like a little jaunt down memory lane for Jaime as they travel a little bit, and they go through these places that he has memories. He's been here before. And one of them is, I guess he says, where he had been, there had been a miller and a miller's daughter, and they had yelled at him to turn his back the other way, as if he didn't know where he was going.
I love that. And this is him remembering the first time that he realized that he wasn't made Kingsguard because he was like a good fighter. It was exclusively to spite his father.
Yeah, this is fascinating because we already knew how much Tywin really didn't respect this role and kind of was bitter that Jaime did this. Mm-hmm. So I knew that existed, but finding out that the reason he got the job was just to spite his father.
Yeah.
That is one, I'm so surprised that we don't hear about this until this far in the story. And also what like a deep blow that had to be to his ego.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting thing too, because like his father knew clearly what was really going on. Mm-hmm. And so now Jaime is finding out his dad was right.
Yeah.
And does he ever admit to his dad that, oh, now I get it. Now I see, but it's too late. Like really, there comes a point where it's like, what's the point of telling him you were right? Because there's no undoing it.
I feel like Tywin is like the last person you ever want to come back and say, yeah, you were right.
Yeah.
Like, like he just is so smug as it is, that you just never want to give him the satisfaction,
Agreed.
He just inspires that in me. I feel like he inspires that in everyone who ever meets him, where you're just like, fuck this dude, I will never give him the satisfaction of knowing he was right about any fucking thing.
Amen. So they get on the road, and Qyburn comes and is like, hey, did you like my little present I sent you? And it's this girl, Pia.
Mm.
And Jaime is like, oh, you're the one who sent her. And we get a look at the fact that Jaime basically was like interested, but then said to himself, I already have a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And decides to be faithful to Cersei.
Yeah, sends her way out of his bed. Yeah, she slides all the way into bed and like puts his hands on her tits and is like, going about, trying to make some things happen. And he gets like, he's into it, but stops himself and sends her out of his bed, which, I want to be like, that is admirable. But mostly I just feel sad for him.
It really feels like he's being a punk. Like,
it kind of does.
Yeah.
And you know what?
He's getting played and it's embarrassing.
I feel like that is not like the enlightened way to view this. I feel like having that view is problematic in a way that I can't really fully articulate, But I can't help it. I do feel like he is being like played.
I don't think it's problematic because she is straight up fucking some other kid, as we know. So he is acting like this is like a relationship where they have some sort of fidelity where she clearly doesn't see it that way. And also she's his sister.
Well, there's that too. But like fidelity, like, so if it's supposed to be an agreement between, whoever's participating in the relationship, and hopefully both people are holding up that end of the bargain. But also if one person in a relationship chooses infidelity and the other person is still going to be in a relationship with them anyway, they can make a decision to hang on to the fidelity themselves, right? And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But I still feel like he's being a punk. And I just feel like that is, like there's a part of me that's like, Rashawn, there is nothing wrong with that man deciding that his love for his sister is enough. And he is not going to sleep with other people. And even if she chooses to do so, that does not mean he has to choose to engage in the same behavior. But that is not how I took this.
No, and it's like, it's not even that he has to. It's just that it feels like he's doing so with the assumption that Cersei, of course, would also do this.
See, I thought he knew.
I don't know.
I thought I always suspected he understands that she is fucking other people.
Do you think?
I do, but
okay.
Why
do you think that?
Well,
out of curiosity.
I was just about to say, I think that is a some sort of holdover from the show. Where I
don't remember that. Did he like know in the show?
I have a weird memory of like a confrontation at some point between the two of them about her being with other men, but I don't really have much more than that to offer. I'm sorry. If anybody listening remembers, a particular thing. But I feel like when he comes back to King's Landing after he's lost his hand, there was a moment between the two of them.
Gotcha. Okay.
But because I feel like he even says something along the lines of feeling foolish for having believed she was, like, I understand you had to fuck Robert, and I made allowances for that, but I can't believe you would, blah, 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 blah. But anyway, so but at this point in their relationship, he is still firmly committed to her and does not want any other woman. Which, isn't that what we all want from our brother lovers?
Oh, God, I hated that so much. Anyway, so, yeah, this, then he says something, they start talking about Brienne and the ransom.
Yeah.
And Qyburn says...
This motherfucker.
Yeah.
He done spilled all the beans.
All of it.
No good reason. just telling the world that, there are no sapphires on Sapphire Island or wherever the fuck that place is called. And, they don't really even have that much money. And now her father's only offering like 300 fucking dragons. And
which is truly very insulting.
That is super insulting, right? Is it because her father is not wealthy, or is it because he does not value her?
I don't know, because Jaime says that's a fair price for a knight, and I'm like, yeah, but this is not a knight. This is his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like it should be more than that, but I don't know. Maybe he is just aware she's never going to give him any heirs, or I don't know if it counts as giving heirs if it's your dad and not your husband. But nevertheless, she isn't. It doesn't seem ever going to get married to give an alliance to the family. So maybe just there's no value in keeping her around if she isn't going to serve the family.
Yeah. And because of this, what we feel like, I agree, this feels like a lowball answer, this 300 dragons. But to be fair, I have no idea what the money situation is over there. The cost of living and inflation and all that shit. I don't really know. But it feels like a lowball. And the important part of this is Vargo also thinks it's a lowball.
Yeah.
He thinks he's being cheated, that these people are playing games, and that has put Brienne in a really already was in a dangerous situation, but an even more dangerous situation.
Yep. Yeah, there was some incentive to keeping her from being injured or raped or anything if they were going to get a higher price for that return, but that doesn't look like it's on the table anymore.
Yeah. And this next bit is really this chapter turns around, but this part was really hard to read, where there's a fucking line where he says she's strong enough to survive a rape or two or some shit like that.
Yep.
And you're just like, what?
Yep. This is a man who does not understand what that means.
But it lends itself right back to this whole thing that's recurring in this universe, which is just how fucking common and insignificant, and without consequence, a little casual rape is.
Yep.
It's just like fucking going to the fucking barn to milk a cow or some shit. It's like pedestrian. It's really, really upsetting.
I don't know why, but that comparison,
it's
fucked me up.
I'm going to the barn for a pail of milk and a little rape. I'll be right back.
Back.
And he is just being like, she'll be fine. She'll be fine. And he even makes some really unfortunate jokes about fucking her and this his dick breaking off or something. Yeah. This is not a good look for Jaime.
Women have a whole thing to shut that down.
My God. Yes.
It's funny because it's horrible.
Right? He says something, Jaime thinks to himself fuck, she's strong as shit too. He might not know how strong she is, talking about Hope. He better be fucking careful. She's just gonna snap his neck. But this is all very flippant, well, what can you do? She'll be fine. Really, this is out of my hands at this point. What could I be? This is feeling all very much like him trying to justify
100%
why he doesn't need to be concerned for her well-being at this point. Trying to wash his hands of it. And then, of course, at the end, we see that he's not able to do that. But it is a uncomfortable read for a page or two.
So that conversation sort of, they have a moment where they come across this burned village. And he is looking around, realizing that he remembers this place as well. And wondering, because the guy said, oh, a night here drinking my ale, I'll tell my grandchildren. And he's like, man, I bet that man and his grandchildren have all been killed by whoever did this. And they want to stay and take a break. And Jaime is like, bad vibes. We're out. It's interesting that Jaime can act so sort of impenetrable in terms of what bothers him, but then he'll be sensitive in this way where he's like, no, we're not stopping here because it's bumming me out.
Yeah.
Where these dudes clearly have no problem with it. I don't think they're having these kinds of existential thoughts. And
it doesn't seem like it.
Yeah.
And especially when you think about the description he gives of Stillshanks, and you sort of try to think, well, I bet that applies to a lot of the people in this escort. Then yeah, these types of soldiers are not going to, even if they have these sort of fleeting moments where they feel this bad energy or whatever, they would never like suggest altering their plans because they got weird vibes. Like they would never, because they are soldiers and they follow directions or whatever. But Jaime is not a soldier.
He sure isn't.
So
he gets his way and he is used to that.
Yeah, so if he doesn't like a thing or wants a thing to be different, he's just going to go ahead and say that shit and expect people to accommodate it, which most of the time in his life they do.
Yeah.
And they do in this case, right? Can you imagine?
Oh.
So yeah, they decide to camp somewhere else. And then he has this dream.
Yeah.
This weird ass dream where he is being forced to the depths of Casterly Rock. That seem like they don't really exist in real life.
Mm-hmm.
And he's being prodded and pushed like darker and further down.
Yeah.
Until finally he's like somewhere with a little bit of water and it's completely dark, and then there are ghosts everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And they are the ghost of his fellow Kingsguard, right? That's who a lot of these guys are. And then he names a couple of them. Some of the names I didn't really recognize, but then some of them I did.
Let's see. The voices of all the Lannisters since Lan the Clever, your place. Most of all, it was his father's voice, and beside Lord Tywin stood his sister, pale and beautiful. Joffrey was there as well, the son they'd made together, and behind them a dozen more dark shapes with golden hair. Oh, I don't remember that, but that's interesting.
Yeah.
And he asks her why his father brought us here, and she says, "Us?
Mm-hmm.
No. This is for you.
Yeah, this is your place. This is your darkness."
Yep.
And then they fucking start to leave.
Yeah, they take the torch with them, and he's like, "Don't leave me here. Don't leave me in the dark. I gave you a sword," Lord Tywin said, and he finds it and grabs it and is like, "Well, all right, at least I have this." There's a point earlier where he thinks, if I have a sword, nothing can harm me, which just the idea of being that confident in your own self, like in your own skill.
Yeah.
Because he has his hand back in this dream, of course.
Yeah. And he says the same thing when he picks up the sword in this moment, that nothing can hurt me as long as I have it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's water like flowing and kind of rising a little bit under his feet. And then there's a splash and he turns around and Brienne is there, in chains.
Yep.
And she says, "I swore an oath," which is basically like explaining, "I'm here because I swore a fucking oath."
Yep.
And he cuts her chains. And then he goes back to Cersei and they're leaving again. And he begs for them to stay. And
Brienne just says a sword, and all of a sudden she's got one.
Yep. It's just there.
Yeah.
And then they are gone. And both Brienne and Jaime's swords are like sort of lighting up.
Mm-hmm.
And she asks if there's a bear down here.
Yeah. A cave lion? Dire wolves? Some bear? She says again.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me, Jaime, what lives here? What lives in the darkness? Doom. No bear, he knew. No lion. Only doom. And we could go back the way they brought us. If you climbed on my shoulders, you'd have no trouble reaching that tunnel mouth. Listen. Something comes. A man on a horse. No, two. Riders side by side. And these men come forward, and they're not making any noise, which is reminding him of Ned Stark coming into the throne room.
Right. I love that little bit, too, because this captures what it's like to be in a dream sometimes.
Very much.
When the two riders come, he thinks to himself, underneath the rock down here? How could two riders? That doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah, between that and the sword just appearing, like suddenly it's there. That's the thing about dreams that I always find so wild is how quickly your brain adjusts. It'll be like, that wasn't there. Yes, it was. It was always here. Okay. It was always here. It was just crazy. And then he realizes that there are more. 5 had been his brothers. Oswell Went and John Derry, Lewin Martell, a Prince of Dorne, the White Bull, Gerald Hightower, Sir Arthur Dane, Sword of the Morning, and beside them, crowned in mist and grief, with his long hair streaming behind him, rode Rhaegar Targaryen, Prince of Dragonstone and rightful heir to the Iron Throne. You don't frighten me, he called. He didn't know which way to face. I'll fight you one by one or all together, but who is there for the wench to duel? She gets cross when you leave her out. I don't know why I love that so much, but there's something about just being like, come on, you gotta let her play also. I swore an oath to keep him safe, she said to Rhaegar's shade. I swore a holy oath. We all swore oaths, said Sir Arthur Dane, so sadly. He was going to burn the city to leave Robert only ashes. He was your king, said Derry. You swore to keep him safe, said Went. And the children, them as well, said Prince Lewin. Prince Rhaegar burned with a cold light, now white, now red, now dark. I left my wife and children in your hands. I never thought he'd hurt them. Jaime's sword was burning less brightly now. I was with the king. Killing the king.
I'll tell you what, there's nothing like your own fucking conscience to really fuck with you.
The fires that ran along the blade were guttering out, and Jaime remembered what Cersei had said. No. Terror closed a hand around his throat, and then his sword went dark, and only Brienne's burned as the ghosts came rushing in. And he wakes up in a state.
Yeah, he does. He's fucking woke up half the camp with his big yelling. And his fever is back a little bit. And he's, basically crying. He wakes every time he wakes up too. This is something that happens throughout this chapter. He has to keep waking up to the reality that he lost his hand.
Yeah.
Like every time he wakes up, it's like it just happened. It's news to him again, So he wakes up having just really felt like he felt the sensation of having a sword in his hand. Like he remembers how it feels, the grip, the strength in his fingers. And then he wakes up and all of that is gone. And there's just such a sort of disorientation and just like a sadness. And they all come running like, what is the problem here?
Yeah.
And he's like, it was just a dream. It's not a big deal, I was in the dark, but I had my hand back. And then he looks at his stump and just feels like, ugh, all over again.
Yeah. And he asks Qyburn, do you believe in ghosts? And Qyburn is like, there was one time when I came in the room and I knew there had been a woman sitting in a chair right there. I knew it. And the chair was warm and I could smell her in the air, but she wasn't there. And when I tried to say something about it, the Archmaester wasn't a fan, did not like it. And then he says, well, Marwyn did, but he was the only one, which is in the notes from Austen. He says, Marwyn, nicknamed the Mage, is one of the few maesters who seriously studied magic, and we've heard his name before. Do you remember this? Because I didn't.
I don't.
He taught Miri Mazdur, the Magi who cursed Dany and Khal Drogo.
Oh.
I do not remember her mentioning him at all, but that is wild.
Wow.
Right?
Huh.
So this is when Jaime is like, all right, so real quick, let's turn around and do everything over again that we just did.
Let's just go exactly back to the place we just left because, we've got time. It's no big deal. These roads are safe. We're not in the middle of a war. It's fine. And the entire crew is just like, you wildin'. Like, what are you talking about?
Yep, that's about it.
And he has to threaten Steelshanks. Because he's like, no, we're not going back there. First of all, Vargo is in charge over there now. Like all the people we had backing us up, Bolton and whoever else, they left. They gone. That place is in the hands of the fucking Brave Companions now. They are running shit over there, and we don't really want any of that. And so Jaime says, well, if we go back to King's Landing, I'm going to tell my father and anyone else who listens that you did this shit to my hand.
This is wild.
I'm going to, tell I'm going to sing my father. Unless you
a different tune.
Yeah, right. I might even say it was Bolton who ordered my hand cut off. And Steelshanks is like, how dare you, sir?
I love Steelshanks just being like,
honor?
But that's not what happened. And he's like, no, it's not. Now you're catching on.
Like, I opened this whole dialogue by saying Lannisters lie. That's like the first thing I said to you before I started into this.
I really do enjoy, too, that he realizes I got to play this like Tyrion would. Because I'm just not in the position. Yeah. There's just something about how he has to begin to... He has always admired Tyrion, and we know that. But there's been, I think, in there just a sort of, well, he does his best with what he's got.
Right.
And there's a bit of like, sort of, patronizing sense there.
Like,
now,
look
at him.
It's a lesser skill as far as Jaime is concerned.
For sure.
Like what Tyrion does, Jaime is like sort of like impressed by, but is also like, I wouldn't trade what I can do for it though.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I love this too. Not only does he threaten to lie, but then he immediately backs it up with, but also I can give you as much gold as you want. This doesn't have to go that way. So he threatens to lie on them, which if you don't sweeten the deal immediately, that goes a lot of ways. That goes the other way too.
Yeah.
So Jaime is smart enough to be like, I'm going to threaten them with this lie, but also I don't want them to be bitter about it. So I'm going to make it like nice.
Right. Exactly. So they go back and he has to also be like, we have twice the men, like there's a lot of downsides to doing this, but they begin to head back and he pushes his horse hard and realizes that like, they're sort of falling behind. They had planned to at least take it easy. Nobody was prepared for the urgency of turning around, I think. Yeah,
Jaime seems to really understand that Brienne does not have a lot of time. He doesn't he's not hip to exactly what's going on there, but he knows it's bad and he knows he doesn't have time to waste. Yeah. And when they finally make it back, them trying to get through the gates too. He's out there threatening shit, and they're just like whatever. But then the rest of the guys start piping up, and then they open the key.
So he comes in, and he realizes right away. He hears this shout. Nobody is like around because they're all gathered in this one spot, and he knows they've got her in the bear pit.
Yeah, he's like
motherfucker.
He's like, shit, I am late. Like fuck.
And he rolls up and is like, oh, they gave her a sword. This isn't so bad.
Yeah, they gave her a sword.
It takes a while.
Yeah, it's not until she makes a direct hit and he's just like, wait, where is the blood though? Now, I have a quick question. I don't know if Austin mentions this or not because they had this scene in the show, but I don't remember Jaime leaving and coming back to save her.
I don't think they do this.
Yeah, on the show, he's like, watching it and then jumps in to help her. Like he's like still kind of like in hostage mode, I think.
Yeah.
And then like throws himself in there to help her out.
This is sort of the thing that I find really interesting is the difference between the show handling things because they don't do the dreams the way the book is heavy on dreams and visions and things like that. And the show doesn't do that. And they just have him sort of struggling within himself visibly and then finally deciding to go in and help. But it's a much more direct message. Yeah. In this. There was a conversation that was happening along with Hot D but it wasn't just about, it was about the whole Song of Ice and Fire world. Somebody referred to it as high fantasy and a bunch of people were like,
I mean, it's fantasy, but I don't think it's like, high fantasy or anything. And then the conversation switched to like magic, because the person was thinking there's like really not enough like magic lore. There's a couple of things, but not a lot. And then what that did was spark up the conversation around how much of what was in the books when it comes to that part of the story that the show left out. Yeah. So people like me who haven't read the books, we didn't get all the how prophecy heavy, it was, how dreams played a part, and how some people had like sight through their dreams, you know what I mean? And like all of that different stuff, like the warging in the show is really just about Bran, and and I just thought it was a really interesting conversation. I still don't know like if people consider the books high fantasy or not. It just really depends on what your definition of that even is, But I thought it was interesting because so much of that is missing from the show for reasons.
Yes.
Which I don't know why.
I kind of think it's like just difficult for, there's, I think, a sense of just dreams aren't as interesting to watch and aren't as necessary, because you can just have him decide to change his mind for the sake of it and make it clear in the scene that he is suffering a sort of like internal turmoil. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that it's not necessary there's a lot that's not necessary. That doesn't mean that that doing it isn't a good idea. And I just think this dream is really fascinating because the whole thing, like for those who are familiar with the concept of sort of like deciphering dreams, the whole thing with him being led down into the sort of bowels of the rock where his family is from. This is symbolically, usually we look at going under the earth and into places that are dark and hidden. Either a cave, a basement is a popular one in a lot of people's dreams, as your subconscious.
Yep.
You are going somewhere that things are hidden.
Yep.
And doesn't mean those things are not there, but they are in the dark and they are not something that you cope with. Yep. And this is him facing his like difficulties with what he did.
Yep.
He still suffers from grief over having made this choice, even though he still believes it was the right thing to do.
Yep. And there's still a guilt associated with it, which is something he never consciously admits to. Whenever a lot of it is defensiveness, and a lot of it is like not wanting to deal with the reality of how he's feeling about what he had to do. But whenever we had see him have a conversation about this, whether it was with Ned or with Brienne, he always is just like, I don't feel bad about what I did. I did what had to be fucking done, But this dream, when he's accused by his brothers, and the fact, and then the fact that it's included this bit about the children, which I don't even really know if I even thought about, right? Jaime, King's Landing falls, Robert wins, Jaime kills the Mad King, Robert is crowned, right? And then Robert kills whatever Targaryens that are left.
Right.
So I don't know if I even ever stopped to think about whether people would have. I know that there was that bit with Ned where he sort of is a little disgusted with Robert that he did that.
Yes.
But there was really not much commentary on it from really anybody else.
It's true.
And I had never...
I think people just see it as a matter of course. Like, of course he has to get rid of them all.
And I had never really stopped to think that... I know Jaime was in the Kingsguard and served King Aerys, but also, by extension, served the royal family. And he would have known them and their children. And they would have been murdered on his, like, by a king that Jaime was now serving. Yeah. Like, kind of on his, not that Jaime's responsible, but you know what I mean? Like, and I had never stopped to think about that. So for that to be included along with the accusations from his brothers about like how you killed the king and that, basically dishonored yourself. I was like, oh shit, yeah, that did happen with the kids, didn't it? And he just fucking,
Yeah, and the fact that like his sword is lit, which is clearly symbolic of like his honor, his oath, and it starts to go out as they're throwing these accusations at him while Brienne's is still burning bright. Because she keeps her shit going.
And she has not broken any of her oaths to this point, at least. And there's a bit to at the beginning of the stream. Cersei says something to him about when his sword goes out, you'll die, or when you die, your sword will go out. I forget which order it's in.
It's when the light goes out, you die.
And so so then when he sees the light going out later, he knows what's coming. You know, that's another reason why it's so terrifying. So it's good stuff.
Yeah. And it's interesting because that's in his mind. If I don't have my honor, I don't exist. I'm dead.
Yep.
And considering how, like you have pointed out, how much he pushes against any criticism for what he did, knowing that he kind of believed, like he has had a very lackadaisical attitude in these books so far, and it sort of recontextualizes that a little bit and makes it seem like maybe he has been as cavalier because he feels like, I already betrayed my oath, so who cares? Who cares about any of it? What the fuck do I care?
Yep.
Admitting to that he still cares about anything feels like a joke.
Yep. I agree 100%. This is the first time, like, he mocks Brienne's oath the entire time they're together. Like, he doesn't seem to think that it's important. It's meaningless. Everybody swears things all the time, and then they still do whatever the fuck they want to do, you know?
Yeah.
But then we see that there's still a kernel of him buried very deep inside that has not recovered from the fact that he broke his oath. Even though there's a part of him that believes that he didn't really have a choice and that he did what needed to be done, it doesn't negate the fact that there's a part of him that hasn't forgiven himself. It still feels shame around it. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, I just really enjoy this moment for him. It's an interesting bit of growth and self-realization, and it's like, it clearly he follows through. He decides to turn around, but I can't tell if he really gets the significance of it entirely in the immediate aftermath as a dream versus just kind of reacting to it, you know?
Right. The only thing I'll say about whether or not he gets it or has understood some of what he dreamt about and what that really means for him is the very last line of the chapter, when she is asking him, like, why did you come back? And it says something like there was like a million shitty things he could have said, but instead he just says, I had a dream about you, or I dreamed of you, or something like that.
I dreamed of you.
He makes a choice in this moment not to be shitty.
Yeah.
And also not to continue to engage with her in the way that he had been. There's a bit too also where they keep calling her a wench, and he's like, her name is Brienne.
I love this. He keeps correcting them. Keeps on. He corrects people like 4 times in the course of the chapter.
And it sucks too, because when he finally shows back to rescue her, she calls him Kingslayer.
I know. She has not had her moment yet. She is over here just like, the fuck are you doing here, weirdo? I didn't even really want to see you again. I was feeling I had washed my hands of that stupid oath I made that I shouldn't have made.
Right. I'm over here dealing with bears now. I don't have time for you.
Exactly. I got bigger fish to fry.
But, so yeah, they put her in this fucking bear pit, y'all, because that's a thing. And they have her in this goddamn dress. Oh my God. Do you remember the dress on the show? My God. And there's a weird, not a weird moment, but later on in Catelyn's chapter, there's a call back to Brienne when she's talking to the Mormonts.
Yeah.
But anyway, so she's in this pit fighting this fucking bear, which I'm just going to leave that there. She's in a pit fighting a bear.
She is.
Because it's Tuesday. And I don't like it. I have a lot of questions about the bear pit. I don't expect anybody to have answers, but
I don't want to talk. I don't like the whole bear baiting thing is just so sick.
It just, like, I know that we are capable of great depravity as a species, I know that this is a work of fiction, but it's drawn, like, has some inspiration and some real things. I don't find it difficult to believe that this is probably something people probably did at some point.
Not at all.
And I just don't know how to wrap my brain around that. And then they have her in the bear pit, y'all, with this fucking fake ass tourney sword.
Yep.
Which I can't remember if that's what they did in the show or not. I
feel like they did. I feel like the tourney sword in the show might have actually been wood. Like, the tourney swords in this look enough like a real sword that he makes the mistake. And I think that in the show, for the shorthand of it, they make it clear it's wood and like worthless, basically.
Because the thing, because it's different in the show. In the show, I think Jaime saves her from the bear by, like, maybe he picks up a sword or something.
I can't remember how it goes.
But it's definitely not this way, which is his backup, his escort, like, shooting arrows. And that's how they end up being saved. Because Jaime jumps into this fucking pit and doesn't even bring anything with him.
Mm-hmm.
And the best he can do is tackle her.
What? You didn't even... I had a moment, guys. I did not remember that he jumps in there without a sword. I thought for sure this motherfucker isn't going to jump down there. Doesn't even have two hands. You got to bring something, sir. What are you doing?
At one point, when he's describing his get-up when they are leaving Harrenhal the first time, and he says he has a shield and he's got a sword at his belt, and whatever. Mm-hmm. But then... when they don't go into detail, but I guess when they decide to come back, he's not wearing his whole getup. Because
maybe it's because of the speed needed.
Yeah, right. For whatever reason, he's not, like, outfitted the way he was before, because he hops in this goddamn bear pit, y'all, not prepared.
Nope.
And the best he can do is tackle her. He kicks her legs out from under her.
He grabs something out of the sand, and it's just a jawbone with, like, green flesh and maggots on it.
He's, like, throwing sand in the bear's face.
I swear to God.
Which, gives him a minute or two, but it is not, like, the real solid plan that I would want from somebody who is rescuing me from a bear pit. And then later tries to play it off like, that was my whole plan. Just, like, hold him off until y'all can start saving us.
I love that. Yeah, because I can understand that ostensibly it's, you need me, I'm valuable. If I put myself in danger, you'll have no choice but to step in.
Yes.
But I don't feel like he was thinking that clearly when he did this. So.
I don't, because at first he shows up and he tries to just command them to, like, free her, and he's just like, I don't want any trouble here. I just, like, let her up, like, I don't know, put that on a ladder or whatever, like, help her out. It doesn't have to be a whole fucking thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, my God, when they're watching, Steelshanks is like, this is really none of our business.
Oh my God.
Lord Bolton said that she was theirs now. This is one of the times that he calls her a wench and he corrects her. Her name's Brienne. And he's like, Steelshanks is just like, this isn't about us. Let us take our leave, please. And, you guys, I keep forgetting this motherfucker lisp like this.
Oh my God.
So every time it shows up, my brain, I wish I could see the inside of my brain. When I'm reading and, like, cause it's just, you don't know it's coming and you're reading and everything is regular and, like, whatever. And then all of a sudden, it's in italics, and it's like Kingslayer. And I was like, what in the fuck? Am I having a stroke?
Oh, God, that's good stuff.
So, yeah, that's what that was like for me. I don't know how it's like for y'all.
I love this so much. It's just, especially in the audiobook, he really goes for it with that list.
Oh, I bet he does. I bet he does.
Wild. It's like, all right, sir. I don't know if you had to go this hard.
I can't understand half of what is being said here. There's this sentence. I'm not going to try to read it with the list, but
do it with the list. Go ahead.
It says, "Your themeth bit off my ear. Small wonder her father will not ransom such a freak." So I know he's talking about Brienne, but what is your themeth? What is that?
I'm trying to find the spot because I have no idea.
It says, "Thay out of this, King Thayer, unless you'd like another thump. Your themeth bit off my ear."
Oh, she-moose. She-moose.
Is that what the fuck he's going for?
Your themeth bit off my ear. Small wonder father will not ransom such a freak. He's giving Daffy Duck.
She-moose? If you don't get the fuck out of here right now.
She-moose.
What kind of insult is that?
I feel like he called her a moose at some other point, so it's not out of nowhere completely. But
you could. I don't know why that's so funny to me, but what?
Yep.
Why?
I love that though, because it did not
like
even.
that?
I didn't think about how like weird that would be if you weren't. Because when I was listening, I immediately got what this was.
I had no idea.
But when you were just saying it now, I was like, wait, what? I could not remember.
I was like, is he trying to say something about the moon? Why was he calling her something about the moon? Okay, that doesn't make any sense. Your themeth. Is he trying to say behemoth? That seems weird. What is he trying to say? I couldn't, and
You're behemoth.
You could have offered me $1 million and I would still be broke because I would never have fucking guessed he was trying to say she-moose. Never in a million years. That is outstanding. That is so fucking bizarre to me. Like there are all kinds of animals I'm accustomed to people using to disparage women, but moose is just not one of them. It just isn't. You know, cow, okay, pig, okay, but moose? No.
Manatee. And I personally enjoy that one.
Manatee will always be funny to me because of that Hot Pocket guy's joke. What's his name, the Hot Pocket guy?
What?
The Hot Pocket comedian. You know the guy.
Oh, that real pale one.
Yeah.
I can't remember though.
Well,
but yeah, what joke does he make about manatees?
Girl, it's I have to send it to you. It is not like a joke you say. It's something you gotta experience.
Okay, got you.
But I will definitely send it to you. And if you guys are listening, Jim Gaffigan, that's his name. Right? Google him and manatee.
All right, noted.
Okay. So, all right. So Jaime is talking. He's hearing these insults, and he is. I love this moment too. He's looking at them in the bear pit, and he looks at the bear, and thinks of Gregor Clegane. He says, "With a pelt, though likely smarter."
Yeah, I really enjoy that. Anytime he's going to take a dig at Gregor Clegane, I'm here for it.
Oh God! Like I hate Gregor with a passion, but even I was like, well, that was really uncalled for. Like, you just taking shots. He's somewhere minding his business.
That was wholly called for. 100% on board with it. Thank you for your service, sir. So, yeah, and I do really enjoy when he jumps down there and he's, like, trying to help. And she says to her, I hope you're still maiden. And she gets all red and says, yes. Oh, good. I only rescue maidens. I don't know why, but that really got me. I loved that.
Oh,
like,
God.
All right, well.
So there's a bit, too, when she's fighting and he's watching before he gets down there. And he's, like, worried about her. And then she pulls a couple of moves. And he's like, oh, wait, there's the girl I know. Okay. And, like, being kind of, like, proud of her. And that's when she gets a really good hit. And he's thinking that, like, okay, that might do it. And there's no blood. And that's when he realizes. And he turns and yells at him like, oh, you gave her a fucking tawny sword. Like, how could you do that?
Yeah.
And Hope just laughs. and says, of course.
Sucks.
And Jaime offers to like pay anything, whatever you want, just get her out of there now.
Mm-hmm.
And Hoda's like, all right, you want her? Go get her. And then it just says, so he did.
I can't either. Later on, Vargo Hoat is like, tell your dad that. And I'm just like, sir, that ship has sailed so far.
Really
there is no point to you trying this. You cut this man's hand off and you think still, okay, sure.
I loved it. Like when Jaime, at this point, when Jaime says on Lannister Faces, that's like, you understand that that's a threat, sir, right?
Right.
You understand that's a fucking threat.
He's not trying to hear that.
Meanwhile, he's just like, good. I'll expect my gold expeditiously.
Oh, boy.
Oh.
So then we go to Catelyn. And starts off with Robb sending away his new bride.
Thrice.
Because she doesn't want to let him go by himself. And he is setting her to the side so as to not show up to this man's home whose daughter he promised to marry with his other chick.
At his mother's council.
Mm-hmm.
And it is smart. Right?
Indeed.
Because I remember watching the show, and in the show, obviously, they have him take, what's her face? She has a different name. I forget what it is. But Talisa has, she goes with them. And I remember being like a novice, not having any familiarity with the story outside of what I was watching in real time. And even I was like, you can't show up with your new bitch to like, your old bitch house, even though like technically it wasn't his old bitch house, but y'all know what I mean, right? Mm-hmm. You can't like, why would you bring her with her? Why would you do that? On top of all the other bad choices that led them to that moment, even I was just like, oh, you should have left her home.
Yeah.
So reading the book and finding out that he does in fact leave her behind, which brings up a lot of questions for me in the future, right? But I don't want to get a sidetrack, but I have a ton of questions because in the show when this happens, it's Robb, his mother, his wife, his unborn child, and like most of his good men. Mm-hmm. But here it sounds like the wife doesn't come unless she shows up unannounced, which is, I guess, possible. I don't know what's coming. Maybe she just fucking decides to go anyway. But if in fact she doesn't, that means when Robb is murdered, he leaves behind a widow. A queen. And also in this chapter we find out that also Robb is named Jon Heir, which blew my mind, you guys. Like blew my mind. I don't even know what to do with that. That's like not anything that was on the show at all. And
he doesn't make Jon Heir in the show?
I don't remember that being a thing. If it is, I had completely forgotten that. I don't remember that being a thing at all.
Okay, gotcha.
And you guys, somebody will tell you, oh, it happened, and she doesn't remember it. Do you remember it? Because I feel like there would have been a lot more about that.
I don't remember it, but I don't think about this very often, to be fair. So I'm looking through the notes from Austin to see if he mentions it. And he doesn't reference whether or not it happens in the show. He's just talking about like the text itself. So not sure. But
yeah, so the idea that Robb might leave a widow behind is I don't know if that would have great impact or not, but I think it's really fascinating because I wonder, like, does she just go home? And what happens to her family? They threw in with Robb and now he's defeated. Like what happens? Mm-hmm. So I'm just really interested and curious about that. But at this point, she does not want to leave him, and they have a series of really embarrassing goodbyes, if you ask me.
Yes, progressively. And she's like noticing that in the end, he's being sweet to her, but he is really starting to lose his patience, and she is making him look bad. Yeah. Because as we know, a man has to be able to control his woman.
He really does.
So,
and like having an overly emotional wife who won't listen is not a good look, apparently.
Yeah.
From what I hear. Not that I've ever been an overly emotional wife who doesn't listen. I wouldn't know anything about that.
Not a shred. So we have her thinking about how the advice she gave Robb to send her away has resulted in him sort of blaming Catelyn for his wife not being here. And she knows that he knows better, but he can't help it.
Yeah.
There's also him wondering if he got her pregnant and he doesn't know.
Yeah.
That's another potential thing.
And so another thing he's worried about is he's gone off to battle without making sure his wife is pregnant, which is how the whole Jon as an heir thing comes up. She also like, fucking Edmure, you guys, I keep trying to like not be annoyed with him, but I just keep being annoyed by him.
There is a point where she later on is like, "Oh, I shouldn't have said that." And I was like, "Bitch, yes, you should.
You absolutely should have. That shit needed to be said.
It did.
Like he's just being a whiny little bitch, and like I had a certain amount of empathy for him earlier when they arranged this marriage because he was real salty about it and he was feeling the way. Well, Rob didn't do it, so why should I have to do it, right? And I was like, you know what? That's okay. Okay, you're right. Rob should have did that shit. Rob fucked up, and now you have to clean up his mess. That does suck. I get it. But also, we're trying to look at a bigger picture here.
Yeah.
We are trying to win a war, sir. And he is what if she's not pretty, though?
This is what's killing me. She later on is like, oh, I shouldn't have snapped at him. Is it so bad to hope for a pretty wife? No, but you don't keep fucking hammering on it out loud in front of everybody. Like you're going to the gallows when you haven't even met her yet. You're just making all these assumptions and whining when this is like the least. You're out here ready to go to battle and fucking die, but you are gonna make a big fuss about this. Like shut the fuck up. Nobody wants to hear it, sir.
We really don't, sir. And I was so glad she told him to shut the fuck up. And she's like, maybe you should be hoping that your wife is, kind and maybe smart and maybe healthy.
Yep.
And so then he's fucking like salty about it for the rest of the chapter and is ignoring her. Like everybody is icing her out in this chapter. So she spends a lot of time. Well, not everybody, but mostly everybody.
Yeah.
The men at least. Between Rob and Edmure and then the like other like high ranking guys that we find out later already know that Rob is about to send her somewhere off. But so it allows for Catelyn to spend a lot of time in her own head in this chapter, which is why we get that fucking relentless litany of loss. That's what we should call it, the relentless litany of loss.
Feels like a book title on its own.
Let me go ahead and jot that down.
Yeah.
But where's I going? So she is in her head a lot because she's not really being consulted and having conversations with her brother or her son or these other men that are sort of in charge. But we do have the two ladies from Lady Mormonts. And I just want to go on record. Every time anybody from Bear Island shows up, especially the women, I'm here for it. 100% delightful. I would like to spend more time with them. I'd like to visit Bear Island, see what they get into over there.
Yep.
I like it. I like it on the show, and I like them in the books.
Agree. Yeah. Oh my God. I'm just there's a point where she's thinking to herself, are men so fragile that I can't tell them the truth? And I'm like, girl, you should have known by now.
Yes.
You are an adult woman living in this universe. You should fucking know.
I mean, we are adult women living in this universe and we fucking know.
Exactly. And like, I guess that she was lucky enough to be married to Ned Stark, who is going to be somebody who maybe actually listens in a way that most dudes wouldn't. But,
I love that bit too when she's thinking about, I don't know if she says it to Edmure, but when he's bitching about like what his wife is going to be, and it makes her think about and admit to herself, or at least remember to herself, you know what? I wasn't that fucking in that Ed first time. I had, what's his name? Brandon? That was the brother, right?
Brandon Stark, yeah.
And apparently he was the business. The way she describes him, also like he had this great personality. He was like loud and boisterous and fun. And Ned was just like somber and solemn and like so serious all the time, And then also she called Ned plain-faced, which I was like, oh, word?
Damn.
God damn. I think that's also the insult that Alice had used when she's talking about Rhaenyra's kids. And she calls them plain-faced.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
I'm just like, okay, that's just what they say in Westeros somehow. When they trying to tell you.
That's when she's trying to be like, you look like a peasant.
But yeah, so she's remembering, like, Yeah, I wasn't fucking really into it when I had to marry Ned, but I learned to love him, and maybe Edmure will as well.
And it's shut the fuck up with his complaints long enough.
Listen, that we all know that's not possible.
I just imagine him meeting her and just being like, "Oh, you're as ugly as I was worried you were," and every day since just whining about her looks to her face.
What was the thing that somebody said when he's whining out loud and he's wondering like if she's going to look like Walder Frey, and somebody's like, well, he's got so many kids with so many different mothers, there's got to be, like, the odds are some of them are comely. And that makes Catelyn snipe, and she talks about Cersei, right?
Yes.
But the other thing is, someone immediately says, well, if she's cute, what are the odds that Walder Frey is going to let you marry her?
Yeah.
Which is like,
I really do enjoy that.
I did too, like, reminding everybody just how fucking petty he is. Like, he's absolutely not going to let you marry one of the pretty ones. He may have let Rob marry a pretty one, but now at this point in the transaction, no.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, actually.
Yeah. Edmure is getting a spite daughter.
Spite daughter. Damn.
No offense to her, but offense to her.
So throughout this whole chapter, it is pouring rain. Absolute downpour. And they are struggling not only with just loneliness because they can't talk. The noise of the rain is so loud that there's no way to really like chit chat. But also as they hit a spot where the bridge has been washed away and there's one other option and that's also gone. So they have to go around this long way. And they think, I think it's Rob who says, well, we'll get there eventually. And she's like, yeah, but Frey is going to be salty and think that this is on purpose. And Rob is just like, oh, what the fuck do you want me to do?
I guess
Make a bridge?
I'll be apologizing for everything with every second breath. Because she's always having to remind him like what kind of man they're dealing with. And Rob seems like more increasingly annoyed by her counsel and her interjections.
Yep. And I just really, what are you trying to contribute? Do you think that he doesn't just want to get there and get this over with? Of course he does. The whole vibe of this is just, again, look, I understand your criticisms in a lot of these cases, and I have no problem with you saying some of the shit you do, but then there's stuff that's not helpful. It's just like feeding into the sense of like doom hanging over everything.
She, at one point in these chapters, I can't remember when it happens, but Catelyn thinks to herself, is that all I am? I'm just rain, like pouring down, being bad news all the time. I'm not sure how sincerely she's questioning herself, like in a real way, or if it's more of just like a feeling sorry for herself. Like everybody just treats me like I'm just, bringing bad news for the sake of being bad news. They don't understand I'm trying to be helpful. Or if it's a real serious moment of self-awareness where she's like, shit, am I really doing that? Is that all I do? Like I couldn't tell which is which.
Yeah.
But there's also this really, like, to me, elaborate plan that Rob has that everybody is like really like, oh, this is a great plan. It involves like splitting up his men, attacking Moat Catelyn from 3 different sides. Catelyn? Oh, it is Catelyn. There's no T in there. Because someone has brought news that fucking, what's his face? What's his name? Balin? No.
Oh, Balin Greyjoy.
Oh, it is Balin. Has died. And that Euron? I don't want to say Euron. Ugh.
Yeah, do not say that.
Sorry about that, y'all. Is on the throne, and that there's going to be basically chaos over the Iron Islands because everybody's going to be trying to get home to throw their voice into who should the succession. And Rob feels like this is a good time to take advantage. Like they won't take all of their men from the various places, but they will take a lot of them back home. And they will probably take their strongest leaders and their captains, because those are going to be the people who really feel like their voice needs to be heard the most. Mm-hmm. So Robb has his plan to take advantage of this by splitting up his party, and a lot of his plan is really dependent on the support of Roose Bolton.
It sure is.
And that is, you know.
And he's talking about, like, I wonder how Roose is doing on his march. Again, you guys, I should have seen it, but I didn't. I wasn't putting 2 and 2 together. I was like, blinders on, just full speed ahead. Robb is going to come out on top because he's a good guy. That's all.
I cannot imagine what it was like to read this. Like, I remember what it was like on the show, and that shit was you guys all know. Y'all were there. You watched it. You experienced it. But it really was fucking shocking, that moment. And I am a little sad that I didn't get to experience. But if I had read it in the book, then I wouldn't have had the experience I had on the show. So, you know, it's, what are you gonna do, right?
Yeah, little this, little that. The other thing I had wanted to mention about the rain is that once they go the long way, their carts get stuck in the mud in a lot of places, and they wind up having to leave them behind, like half of them, and take all of the, you know, their supplies off and divide them up amongst the others, which causes them to be even slower because they are overweighed down. And we also get like the description of the entire formation of this long train of people.
Oh, they got like 3,500 people traveling with them.
Yeah. And they also are like herding cattle and sheep and whatnot behind them. You know, as a meat source, which I didn't like consider that you would bring your animals with you, but I like that makes sense.
Right? Yeah,
you would want to do that and have a steady, stable source of food. But just the idea that, like, on top of dealing with a war and all of this, that you've got to have like shepherds along to help with the fucking management of these animals, and then behind them are the camp followers.
Yeah, they call them like foot sores or some shit.
Footsore camp followers, because they are on foot. They are not. Nobody's got.
They don't have no horses to ride.
They're behind the animals, which really, they're just walking through animal shit, I guess.
Yeah, and it's what's interesting to me about that part of the caravan is why.
Which part?
Like, why are they following this caravan around? Is it just because they are, like, they make their living in some capacity?
Camp followers are a nice way of saying whores.
Well, I guess they do make their living.
Yeah.
I figured it might be like a mix of, like, you know, sex work and maybe like cooks and odd jobs, like maybe smiths, not smiths, because that's a pretty specialized, important, like respected job, but maybe something a little bit more menial that might be needed. Like, instead of trying to make your living stationary, there are just a group of people that are like, we're just going to follow the war around.
Well, I mean, there's nothing to say that's not it, but usually when they say camp follower, that's what they mean. And like, that's where Tyrion picked up Shay, when she was a camp follower.
Right.
And it worked out real well for her.
Yeah, I mean,
so,
my God, not to go back to Jaime's chapter, but when Qyburn sends the girl to his bed and she remembers him and she's like, I saw you and I thought you were cute and I never thought that I'd actually get a chance to be with you.
And she says that sometimes when I'm with other men, I think of you and pretend they're you. And I was like, oof. That is a hell of a compliment to be like, I saw you like a decade ago, and since then have been fantasizing about fucking you. Like,
and he still sent her away.
Yeah, he even says like, oh, it was really hard to send her away after she said that. I felt extra bad. You should, sir. You robbed her of her little fantasy. She was any girl who has like read Bop, and then Devon Sawa just shows up on her doorstep, shoves her away, heartless. So, okay, back to Catelyn. Speaking of the Bear Island women, I love Daisy says, I fought beside the young wolf in every battle. Daisy Mormont said cheerfully, he's not lost one yet. No, but he has lost everything else, Catelyn thought.
Mm-hmm.
And she has to be like, I'm not saying that the faith people have in him is like the only thing holding any of this together anymore.
Yeah, I'm so glad she kept that shit to herself.
Indeed.
I just went to, since you went back to it, the thing about the ladies, Mormont, and they're talking about what it is like, because Catelyn thinks to herself, she looks at them, and then she thinks, these two women seem more comfortable as both warriors and women than the girl from Tarth had been.
Mm-hmm.
And that is such an interesting thing, because what we find out, that Daisy, I think, ends up telling us, or maybe it's the older lady, but they tell us what it is like to be women on Bear Island, and basically the men leave for long stretches, because that is how their society functions. And the women are left alone, and they have to learn to fight. And there's, I guess, a statue or an idol of some kind somewhere in their little town of a woman, and she's got a kid on her breast, and then like an axe in her other hand.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And the woman starts to talk about Jorah's wife. And how, because the one girl,
I had forgotten that Catelyn met her.
Met who?
Jorah's wife.
Oh,
Catelyn met her.
That's right, because they came to Winterfell. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Catelyn says, "Oh yeah, they came and visited us one time at Winterfell." But yeah, and it's just funny to hear somebody else talk about Jorah's wife, because we had heard him discuss her before, and she was just very like high maintenance,
mm-hmm,
and very like needed the best of everything, and didn't want to do anything dirty or manly or anything like that. She's very refined, and that's why he ended up having to go into slavery to like be able to afford her.
And she was also super young and had grown up in like a city where there was a ton to do and places to go, and there's nothing out there. Yeah, so he had to hire people to come entertain them, and it was all very paltry compared to what she was used to.
That's what Catelyn is like. She has the memory of trying to tell this woman, like, it was when I first got up here, I didn't think I'd survive, but I've learned to love it, for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that message did not sink in.
It sure didn't.
But okay, so God, I'm sorry, kind of like bounced around a little bit.
Yeah, there's not, because it's like all traveling and conversations happening during the travel. A lot of it doesn't need to be talked about in it's my Lungo Island coming out in order. But there's the moment where her and Robb are talking, and he is discussing with her what he plans to do for the inheritance of Winterfell.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because he brings up Jon and is like, you forgot about him. And she's like, no,
did
I not. No, I did not.
Yeah. Because Catelyn is like, well, you have sisters, right? And Robb gets really testy. He's like, first of all, Sansa's married to Tyrion, and he cannot fucking have Winterfell, so that is off the table.
Yeah.
And he yells at her and is like, this thing with Arya, you need to fucking face reality.
Yep.
She is dead. She is probably fucking dead, and you need to like get it together on that.
Yeah.
Very harsh.
Yep.
And then they circle to the sons, and he just puts it out there. And I did a quick Google, and this was not this wasn't on the show. The whole like Jon, and it wouldn't need to be, because I guess on the show they have Talisa being pregnant, so there is no concern about heirs, I guess.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
But so he decides that he's going to name Jon, and Catelyn is like, well, she has her feelings about it. Like
very
first
much.
She's like, a Snow is not a Stark, but then she's like, okay, well, how about this though? He is part of the Watch now, and he took a vow, so he can't be your heir. He cannot, like, he can't. He's off the fucking table. How do you like that? And it's really said with like a lot of like, this is final.
Yep.
And
Robb rightfully is like, I have never heard of an oath that money couldn't undo in some way or another. And they need men real bad. Yep. So if I were to send them, say, 100 in place of Jon, I just feel like they would be okay.
I feel like they would understand. And they wouldn't feel the loss as poignantly.
Acutely.
And so then Catelyn, who probably just watched House of the Dragon as well, because she says, if you make him your heir and you have children, they will never be safe.
Yep.
Jon and his children. And the way she talks about Jon's children, too, she keeps saying breed. If he should breed any sons, as if he's just going to have bastards all out there willy-nilly, because that's what bastards do.
I noticed that. I'm glad you pointed that out, because, she's not saying if he has heirs. She says breed. And I was like, oh, that's got a certain energy, doesn't it? Yeah.
And for her example, she brings up the Blackfire pretenders and talked about the trouble that they give the Targaryens for 5 generations until one of them decides you just need to kill all of them to fucking get them out of the way. And Rob is just like, and this is so weird having just finished watching House of the Dragon, but he's just like, Jon would never harm a son of mine. And I'm just like, I mean, I also believe that to be true, but I don't know what's, up is down.
This is like, she follows that up with, oh, wouldn't he? Just like, you thought Theon wouldn't harm your brothers. And he is so angry that Grey Wind feels it and starts to growl at her. And I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
That, and he says something like, that was as unkind as it was unfair.
Yep, that is as cruel as it is unfair. Jon is no Theon. And so this is when she brings up the sisters part, and he says it again about Tyrion not becoming, not letting Tyrion get Winterfell. But this is when he does a thing about Arya and and then now it makes sense because she just said that thing. So now he's flipping back with, okay, in Arya, she's fucking dead. So why don't you just stop with that? And shortly after this is when
this was so hard to read, though, honestly. Like the way that she is behaving, like, you are not facing reality. And like, I think there is some truth to it. She keeps on bringing up the Blackfire Rebellion and what happened with that, because this man legitimized all of these bastard children, and it just led to fucking war. And she's not wrong, but also it is just that she hates Jon. Like, be real, but she doesn't want to admit how prejudiced she is.
She's trying to couch her bias as if it is like legitimate and based on impartial evidence, and she doesn't have an agenda. But the thing is, Rob knows.
Yeah.
Like, she might be able to pull this lie in front of somebody else, but Rob was there. He watched his whole life. He knows exactly how his mother feels about Jon. There's no sense in her trying to pretend that this is anything other than that. And she is begging him not to do this. And he is asking that, I would hope that you would support my choice. And once again, she is telling him, I support you in everything, but not this. Which I feel like we have heard before.
It's a real Meatloaf line. That did not deserve that laugh. You're very kind to me, Rashawn.
Oh, no, that was solid. That was a solid joke. And for people who don't get it, I just feel bad for them.
Listen, if you don't get it, it's fine. It's not that good. It's not that good. It's fine. This is one of those that as a kid, I will do anything, but I won't do that. Drove me fucking crazy. I was always just like, then you wouldn't do anything. What are you even saying? Really overreacted.
Very high expectations and standards for a man named Meatloaf.
Oh, don't get me started with when I found out that was his name, which just was a whole other thing.
That's so funny because I don't remember learning about Meatloaf. Like, he was just always a thing. So I don't remember like being like, is this motherfucker's name Meatloaf? And we all just okay with that? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I think that my mom, because I had thought when she told me Meatloaf, I was like, that's a band? And she's like, no, that's his name. And I was like, his parents named him Meatloaf? And she's like, no, it's not his real name. And I was like, well, then what the fuck? And basically she had to be like, it's like Madonna. Like she wasn't, that her name isn't Madonna. And I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. But she had to mention Madonna before I was like, gonna accept it as valid in any way.
That's like her middle name, though.
Madonna's middle name is Madonna?
I think so. She's got
I didn't know that.
I don't know if that's, I feel like that. She's got like a regular first name, and then I think this is her middle name, and then her last name is, I used to know it, but I don't know it anymore. Something Italian, I think.
I'm not going to look it up.
Yeah. But, okay, all right.
We can do an episode of What's Sober about Madonna.
Oh, man, no.
I know, right?
You did that, yeah. So, this fucking thing with the heirs. And at this point, he is done with his mom.
Yeah.
When she says, I can't support you in this. And he just turns away and walks off. And she is left, once again, alone, wondering, like, I just keep pissing everybody off. What have I done? This is when she has that wonderful, are men so fragile that they cannot bear to hear it? Which the answer is yes.
Correct.
And then
I do enjoy, though, that, like, it all ends like this, and the scene later with, I'm the king. So, yeah, you are doing this. I'm the king. So, you're supporting me in this, whether you're supporting me or not. It's happening.
And also, we're sending you someplace else now, too,
Indeed.
by the way. And she's just like, oh, that's my punishment. And she's like, well, you know what? If I can't be here with you, then can I just go back to River Run? I forget where they're sending her, but she asked to go back to River Run. And he's like, no, because my wife is there. And I can't have my mother and my wife both in the same place. That just makes it too easy, you know.
Got a good point.
Yeah, I was curious about that. Like, I was like, okay, strategy-wise, yeah, you know, you don't want to have all your loved ones and your assets or whatever, people that would make you vulnerable all in one place. So, you know, all the enemy has to do is swoop in and they really have you by the nuts. But then also it felt like, yeah, no, I'm not sending you back to where you'd be comfortable. How about that?
Ooh, interesting.
But I don't know. I could be reading into that, so I don't know. But where is he sending her?
Let me look real quick. I'm trying to find the spot because I'm still at when he's yelling at her that she is. Oh yeah, I'm not there yet. I'm still looking at the fight they were having. Oh, and just a real quick, the discussion about Balin Greyjoy. They mention Euron showing up, and the description of his ship is so creepy.
The silence.
Black sails and a red hull, and crewed by mutes.
Yeah,
which is the first taste of how much more intimidating Euron is in the book.
Yeah, the guy on the show.
Not a drop of intimidating in that man.
But this book guy sounds a little like, I don't, and there's no, like, they tell the story of, like, Balin crossing one of those raggedy ass rinky-dink bridges that they have and just being, like, whipped away by the wind. It doesn't sound like there's any suspicion just yet. Yeah. Right? Which I feel like on the show, not to continue to make these comparisons, but you guys know.
It's fine. We know.
I feel like on the show, maybe because we saw him do it, but it was, did we see him do it? I think we see him do it on the show.
I feel like we do. Right. He's the one standing there who tosses his brother. Yeah.
Right. So the whole, like, what happened here isn't really, like, a mystery for us as we're watching.
Right.
And I'm trying to remember if, as news spread about Greyjoy's death, were people suspicious right away, or was it like nobody really thought twice about it? But here, the news is shared by this guy who was being held captive and then makes a break for it in the chaos after the king dies. He just, like, makes it back to his ship and skedaddles away.
Love this for him.
For some reason, that really made me laugh. I don't know why.
Like, ooh, looks like a good time for old me to get my ass up out of here.
It was like, in my brain, it was like a little cartoon. I don't know why, but it just was.
I completely agree. And also we find out that there was somebody who was like, Euron, you can't sit on the sea stone chair, and he has him drowned in a cask of seawater.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I was just like,
Euron is
that would teach everybody to keep their fucking mouth shut, I suppose.
He is not taking suggestions at this time.
Indeed he is not. You can refer that to my complaints department, which is this cask of seawater. Anyway, Lord Mallister has kindly offered to keep you safe at Seaguard until the war is done.
Seaguard, okay,
right.
Okay.
I love them when one of them says something like, "Oh, the Seaguard will be brightened by your presence." Shut the fuck up! Stop it! Stop it! Fucking her smile lights up a room. Bullshit. No, what we are not going to do is talk down to this grown-ass woman who knows full well what the fuck is happening.
Her first thought is like, okay, this is my punishment for opposing him about Jon. Or is it for being a woman? Or worse, is it for being a mother? And she's looking, and this is when she realizes that all the guys are watching her for her reaction. And she's like, they already knew this was coming. He already told them this was part of the plan. And she says to herself, you know, she shouldn't even be surprised that no one would tell her, or that this is where they are, that they're going to send her away, because she hadn't really, you know, she hadn't made any friends. Mm-hmm. She fucking let Jaime go. And
that was something I keep forgetting every time she brings up, oh, they're still mad about that. Yep. I'm like, oh, right.
And apparently the great Jon had just been walking around saying that women have no place on a battlefield. Like he's just been muttering it for who knows how long.
This man.
And so she says straight up, so you would make me a fucking prisoner. And he's like, no, an honored guest.
Yeah, this is the whole way that this goes down, and her being surprised for a moment that they all knew that before her. I was honestly a bit surprised that she was surprised. I'm like, girl, you don't have a part in this, really. He listens to you as a courtesy. Like, let's be real about how this works.
Yeah.
But
he has been very tolerant of his mother, and he has listened to some of her advice and taken her advice in a couple of times. But it seems like to me, he is becoming increasingly resentful of her advice.
Yeah.
And then in this chapter, we see him being basically just like, I've had enough. You know, like things started, and he was taking her counsel, and, you know, then she just kept not letting Jaime go was a real fucking fuck up.
It really was. That's really sealed her fate, I think.
And he has been carrying that. And by continuing to let her, you know, advise him, has to make him look fucked up in the eyes of some of his men, you know. And he has been carrying that. But then he fucked up marrying Jane or Jenny. Is it Jenny or Jane?
Jane Westerling.
Because it's Jeyne, right?
Yes.
All right. So in my brain was like, yeah, that's Jenny. No, it's not.
Close enough. I get it.
But, you know, so then he had his fuck up, and he felt like, well, shit, I can't be mad at my mom because I just did a really huge fuck up too. And so he was, for a little while, you know, indulging his mom again. But he seems to have come out on the other side of that shit. And decides to send her away. And I am really curious because it says, I'm trying to think, as they talk about her going back to Seaguard, this is all going to be after the wedding.
Right.
They're all going to go. Oh, and also his plans really rely on Howland Reed as well.
Yes.
Through some of this, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah. So they're going to go for the wedding, and then he plans on sending his mother away so that he can be a man and not like some mama's boy. And then he closes the meeting out with like, oh, and by the way, here's this document that's going to fucking legitimize my brother, and I need all y'all to sign that shit real quick.
Yeah. Yeah, this is, there's something about this that I really appreciate from Rob. Like, I really understand Catelyn's perspective, and I don't think she's giving him bad advice most of the time, but there is something about him finally just being like, no, you know what, I'm gonna do what I think I need to do. That is growth. It's just a different type of growth than what a lot of parents want to see, but
yeah, but
that is how it works.
That's what's supposed to happen. And from my understanding is eventually you raise children who make their own choices, and you just hope that you prepared them well enough to make good choices, you know. But so yeah, he is finally, I guess, cutting. What was that expression? Like
cutting the apron strings.
That's the one.
Yeah, this is. I think it's interesting too what you said about like I'm not sending you somewhere you'll be comfortable. I'm sending you to this other place. I also wonder if it's you wanted me to send my wife away. I will, but guess who's following right after her directly? Maybe a bit of that in there as well. There's just a sense of sort of, I don't want to say spite because that feels too strong, but there's a sense of a little pettiness. Just a drop.
There is. And you know what? Like, I don't want to read too much into anything, but even when he's denying her request to go to River Run, he says, the way it's phrased, I left my wife at River Run. Which is just like, he didn't, you know what I mean? It's not like, oh no, Jane is already there. Or, my wife is currently here. Any other way you could have phrased that. But I left my wife. The subtext is because you fucking told me I had to.
Very much so. Just, you think you're too good for the rules to apply to you? Okay. So that's the end of the chapters. She refers to this, what I thought was kind of funny. She could only hope the trap he'd planned for Moat Cailin worked as well as the one in which he'd just caught her.
It's not a trap.
It's not a trap. I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't either.
This is just a decision that you don't like. That's not the same thing.
She made it seem like he snared her into some malevolent evil plan he had, and she just didn't see it coming, and then he sprung it and it was too late. That's not what happened. I definitely
believe that the thing with, oh, mother, you let Jaime Lannister go for love, right? That was a trap before he's like, by the way, I got married. Whoops. That certainly he set that up, but this is not that. That's not the same thing.
Yeah. And the way to when he's delivering this news about where she's going to go, once he says it, after the wedding, you're going to go to Seaguard, he stands up and the course of business changes. It is not up for discussion. There is no debate. It is said, it is done, it is final. Yep. And she can't do anything but sit there and be like, well, I guess I'm going to Seaguard then, huh? Unfortunately, you're not going to make it.
Ooh,
so you really don't have to be that concerned about it.
That's fucked up, but you are not wrong. All right, so I'm gonna say hi to new patrons real quick before we wrap this one up. Is there anything else you want to say about these chapters before I do it?
No.
All right, well, you guys know we are saying thank you to Selena Vivian and Cobra Cartoon, which the name Cobra Cartoon is tying nicely in with the fact that Rashawn and I are going to be doing an Unsober about Looney Tunes this weekend, or tonight as I read this. But if you guys are, wanting more of me and Rashawn talking about just general stuff, we are always doing that twice a month for $20 and up patrons. And you get to come live and hang out with us and also throw us your ideas for future episode topics, because sometimes I really hit a wall and cannot think of anything. And the one we're having at the end of this month is going to be about the Colbert Report questionnaire, in which he asks a series of questions that he asserts get at the full spectrum of the human experience. And I'm really looking forward to that one because some of those questions are pretty fun.
So you're familiar with the questionnaire and seen it before?
I am passingly familiar because I watched him interview Keanu Reeves with it, but it was a while ago and I haven't looked at it since deciding to do this for Unsober. Okay. So,
and I have been advised not to look into it at all, so I have no idea what the questions are.
Don't do it.
I am familiar with his talk shows, but I've never really watched any real in-depth interviews that he's done, so I don't know if it's the same thing he uses for his talk show. I can't imagine it would be, because those interviews are like nothing. So it's got to be something else, and I have no idea what it is.
I think it was on his talk show.
You think so?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's where he did the Keanu Reeves one. But, well, I guess we'll find out.
I'm thinking of the Colbert Report, not like
it was after that.
Not the late night show that he's got, not the Letterman show that he got. I haven't actually watched that ever, but I don't watch late night TV. It's no shade to him. I love him.
Same, yeah. All right, everybody. Well, we love you all very much. Thank you so much to all of you for listening. Of course, thank you to Austin Arminio for sending me the notes as usual. Appreciate you, man. A lot of work he puts into this. And don't forget to join us on the Discord for various things, including me learning crochet very, very slowly. Until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
Joffrey, Cersei, Walder Frey, Meryn Trant, Tywin Lannister.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.